Late night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel has been incredibly critical of Republicans in the Senate and how they're trying to jam or rush a vote on a replacement plan for the Affordable Care Act. Now, recently he criticized Senator Bill Cassidy because Bill Cassidy promised him that if he ever co-authored, co-sponsored, or supported any type of legislation replacing Obamacare, it would pass the so-called Jimmy Kimmel test, indicating that everyone would be covered regardless of whether or not they have a pre-existing condition. Well, Jimmy Kimmel realized that because of a lack of cost controls, people with pre-existing conditions under the Republican plan would get charged exorbitant premiums and wouldn't be able to afford their health care. So he criticizes Cassidy. Cassidy hits back at him with this statement.
What is your response, Senator?
I'm sorry, he does not understand.
Kimmel wasn't gonna let that stand. So he just recently did another monologue where he hit back at Cassidy and said the following. Oh, I get it. I don't understand because I'm a talk show host, right? Well then, help me out. Which part don't I understand? Is it the part where you cut $243 billion from federal healthcare assistance? Am I not understanding the part where states would be allowed to let insurance companies price you out of coverage for having pre-existing conditions? Which part of that am I not understanding? Or could it be, Senator Cassidy, that the problem is that I do understand and that you got caught with your GO penis out? Is that possible?
Damn.
Because it feels like it is. Is Jimmy Kimmel the new woke bae? That was amazing.
Yeah, Kimmel's getting a ton of credit for pointing out things that are obvious, and let me join in that credit. Thank God he did, because we have this weird media and political atmosphere in America where you need a comedian to say something for people to pay attention to it. And it's partly because the Democratic Party is not very good at their jobs. They should have been screaming from the hilltops about this. It's also partly because the mainstream media is terrible at their job. Because why are you leaving it to a comedian to say the truth? So why can't CNN say it doesn't cover pre-existing conditions? It doesn't. It doesn't. Why don't they say, hey, you know what? And I know they'll never ever want to do this because, oh my God, then people in power might be upset with them. But to say what Kimmel said, no, that senator is lying. President Trump is lying. All the Republicans who claim that it covers pre-existing condition, that is not true. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. Whether you think it should cover pre-existing conditions or not is an opinion. Does it cover it? That's a fact. So that's why the Kimmel stands out, because the rest of the media is so bad at their job. So that's why people are like, oh my God, somebody actually said the truth. That's crazy. Is he allowed to say that on TV?
Well, I think what Kimmel does, and I think it's important, is he makes something that could be considered complex, like a policy idea that could be considered complex, accessible to people who aren't necessarily in politics. Like, it seems obvious to us because we live it, we breathe it, it's every day for us. But for a lot of people, especially people who watch those late night shows or are more into like the entertainment world, maybe they were never aware of these things, and having Kimmel kind of break it down the way he does is great. I love that he's doing it. Now, Kimmel was also recently attacked by Brian Kilmeade. Brian Kilmeade made a point on his show about how, the Emmys had such terrible ratings because of the fact that it was highly politicized. Apparently, Kimmel hasn't learned anything from that.
All right, Sunday's politically charged Emmys may have been the lowest rated in history, but that's not stopping Hollywood elites like comedian Jimmy Kimmel for pushing their politics on the rest of the country. Watch. Is he actually portraying the Graham-Cassidy bill properly last night on his late night show? Joining us now is Senator Lindsay Graham, one of the co-sponsors of that bill. Senator, he went off on you and Senator Cassidy directly.
Well, Kimmel hit back at Brian Kilmeade as well.
And Jimmy Kimmel did not like that introduction to the Graham segment and decides to take a personal attack on me.
And the reason I found this comment to be particularly annoying is because this is a guy, Brian Kilmeade, who whenever I see him, kisses my ass like a little boy meeting Batman. Oh, he's such a fan, follows me on Twitter. He asked me to write a blurb for his book, which I did. He calls my agent looking for projects. He's dying to be a member of the Hollywood elite. The only reason he's not a member of the Hollywood elite is because nobody will hire him to be one. And the reason I'm talking about this is because my son had an open heart surgery that has to have 2 more. And because of that, I learned that there are kids with no insurance in the same situation. I don't get anything out of this, Brian, you phony little creep. Oh, I'll pound you when I see you. That will be my blurb for your next book. Brian Kilmeade is a phony little creep.
Wow.
Man, I give Kilmeade credit for running it on his own show. I'm like, man, you're hurt, dog. I don't know if you know that, but you don't ask him if he's all right.
Oh, and he makes it very clear that he's hurt, right? So yes, okay, sure, give him credit for airing that entire rant by Kimmel. But I think what actually makes Kilmeade look worse was his response to that on his own show. So I want to get right to it. Take a look.
For him to go out and attack me personally and try to get into my personality and wants to be a Hollywood celebrity, I was out there for a while. I was doing sports, came back here, and after doing sports for 20 years, been at Fox. Why would I ever leave the #1 network in all of cable, not only news, and the #1 morning show in the country, through all these consequential events, to go out in Los Angeles and do entertainment? I mean, what point is that? No one will hire him? It's not even based in fact.
Okay. So he is saying he does not want to be part of the Hollywood elite. Yes, he has reached out to Jimmy Kimmel, told him he's a fan, asked him to write the blurb in the book. He confessed to all of that stuff, but does not want to be part of the Hollywood elite, not interested at all. But one thing that he wants to definitely clear up is that he's not little. He explains.
For him to go that crazy and attack me personally, so when I get up in the morning, all of a sudden, instead of just saying Brian Kilmeade asked this question, he's terrible at his job, you have to attack me personally. And I guess this little, you said this little man or something like that, I'm 5'10", 174. I'm sorry that's not good enough for you. But I just think if you look at the average chart of a male in America, I think I'm pretty much on target. And I don't kiss your butt. I think you're good at your job. So if I say nice things, I'm not kissing up to you. So you're in the political fray now, and we'll see what happens from here.
Oof. You know what? I gotta be honest, I almost feel bad for him.
Yeah, no, because no, I don't feel bad for him. Like,
that didn't last long. That was about half a second.
No, yeah, I don't feel bad because everything that he has said that has been so incredibly deplorable just rushed back into my brain, and I have no love for Kilmeade. However, I think that last clip that we just showed you guys perfectly illustrates a point that I've been trying to make, but I don't think I've articulated well. Look, people like Kilmeade, people like some of the guys on the alt-right, their egos are bruised, right? They don't feel good about themselves. They don't feel confident. And they're like they have all this pent up tension. And I mean, like if someone called me, Ann Coulter, for instance, during our debate called me an old Soviet woman, right? I know I'm not old. So when she said it, I just rolled off my back, did not care at all. And I moved on to whatever answer I was giving to the debate question. But I'm not insecure about my age. And so someone calling me old doesn't bother me in the least bit. But with Kilmeade, he heard the word little and he panicked, right? He's like, oh my God, I have to now defend my size, which is ridiculous. Like, why would you even get into that? We're having a debate about healthcare. So anyway, that stood out to me.
Okay, so yeah, and Brian, when he calls you a phony little creep, he's not talking about any part of your body. That's not the point he's trying to make, so you don't have to get into stats about your weight and size and stuff. Anyway, so look, I think Kimmel hit him pretty damn hard with that he's kissing my ass and stuff, and you can tell from Kilman's reaction that it's largely true. I mean, he wasn't like, no, I never complimented. No, I didn't ask for him to sign my book. He did, it's obvious, not sign, but do the book blurb. You could sense in that. That's why as a lib, for a second, I'm not as harsh as Anna on this one. I still feel bad for the guy because, I mean, Kimmel took a blowtorch to this dude's knee, and he's like hopping around like, that hurt.
But Jake, what is the criticism that we have for Democrats or liberals? The constant criticism.
They're too weak.
They're too weak, right? So Republicans will punch you in the face And Democrats will sit around, or liberals will sit around and have a discussion about whether or not it's okay to do any type of microaggression. No, not microaggression, big aggression, macroaggression, okay? Go after these bad guys, and I'm not talking about physically, okay? I'm talking about going after their ideas in an aggressive manner and not letting up. I think that we give up too easily. And when I say we, I don't mean us specifically, but as an ideology, we will kneel as like the second we're asked to kneel, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah, and that's of course the old Democratic Party, which we can't stand on the show. So look, one last thing that's pro Kilmeade is that he did say, let's be fair, he did say at the end, he said about Kimmel, continue to do a great job and best of luck with your son. That's nice.
That was kind of classy, sure.
Okay, it was classy. Okay, now, back to the essence of the story, which is, look, all this stuff is fun, but the bottom line is who's right. And so Kilmeade's thesis on that is, he said, if you're gonna talk about this stuff, he said, quote, you should know what you're doing, talk to the people that wrote it. And he says, like we do, like they had Lindsay Graham on. No, but that's not the correct way to find out what's in the bill. You're asking a partisan who wrote the bill, and Kimmel's right, the politicians come on your air and lie to you all the time. So I was kidding around on Twitter. I didn't mean it like I'm not going after Kimmel or anything. I was just being a little snarky, saying, do the politicians lie? Of course. Like, this is not a breaking news event, but to the media it is. That's why they're like, oh my God, somebody said the politicians lie. Wow, right? So anyway, bless his heart for saying that. And so to Kilmeade, you're wrong. Just having that politician come on and to lie to you and your audience is not at all helpful. In fact, Jimmy Kimmel did have the guy on. He had Cassidy out in the first place. That's how this whole thing got started. And Cassidy lied to his face.
That's right.
And that's why Kimmel went on the rant that he did. And so he's not as familiar with politics, so that he was kind of personally outraged that this guy told me a lie. I can't quite believe that, right? So, and the facts are on Jimmy Kimmel's side. They are cutting healthcare by $243 billion. He didn't even get into this, but by the way, the real reason they're doing it is because they have an even bigger tax cut for the rich inside this bill, which they never talk about. That's the real purpose of this bill. And yes, it does not cover pre-existing conditions. And finally, look, the facts are on his side. And finally, part of the reason that it's working and people are on Kimmel's side is because covering pre-existing conditions is incredibly popular. It's popular throughout the whole country, and it's even popular among Republicans. So when he does the job of the press, what they should be doing, and calling Cassidy the liar that he actually is, and Trump then tweeted, I would not sign Graham-Cassidy if it did not include coverage of pre-existing conditions. It does. A great bill, repeal and replace. That's just not true. Yeah. It's another lie. It's a definitive lie. So not only is Kimmel right that they're lying, but he's also right that it's a very popular provision in the country. That's why they're having to lie about it. And it's great that even though he doesn't need it because he's wealthy and could have taken care of his son, it made him empathize with people. He's like, are you kidding me? If you don't have insurance, their kids are gonna die? Isn't that terrible? And yes, most Americans think it's terrible. Fox and Friends doesn't. Lindsey Graham doesn't. Cassidy doesn't. Trump doesn't. Well, then somebody's got to tell people that that's the case. Help us build independent media together. TYTnetwork.com/join.